So, Dave, we've got a distinguished guest today, gracing our podcast. How distinguished? All right, it's actually literally in his title. He is a distinguished professor of architecture at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
You know what? I'm a professor, and
well,
distinguished is not a word that
you can't put it on your business card if it's not true. We're talking to an award-winning author. We're talking to a man who we met once or twice over the years, and is a good pal to the broadcast. We're talking to Tom Leslie right after this.
The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is the Minutia Man Celebrity Interview with Rick and Dave.
So, I mean, I feel like it's demeaning to call him a celebrity because he is, he's a man of letters. He's distinguished. He's joining us today.
We're not talking to Pauly Shore here.
No, we are not. No. He's joining us today to talk about his new book, which is... I mean, this is pretty impressive. Winner of the Newberry Library and Pattis Family Foundation Chicago Book of the Year Award for 2024. Not too shabby. Please welcome to the show the distinguished Thomas Leslie. Mr. Leslie, may we call you Tom?
Yes, yes, please. Yes, please. That'll do nicely. Great to be here, guys.
Okay. Well, before we get to your distinguished book or your book of the year, I was looking over your resume and I see that you not only are a distinguished professor at Illinois, also at Iowa State and a few other places, right? But there's something missing from your resume. Why doesn't it say program director of WPGU Urbana from, 1980, 8 to 9? Or what do we do that?
Yeah, about 1987, 88, I think. Yeah, you're right. That's I need to get that back on there for sure.
Yeah. So what big problems did you have back in 87? Was it the
Thompson
twins
or the big hit that year?
Yeah, what were the power cuts?
Is that Erasure? What are we talking about? 1987.
Yeah, I remember bands like Frozen Ghost and Cutting Crew. I'm probably the only one that does. It was a good time to be in radio. There's a lot of good stuff out there that isn't properly appreciated.
Well, the Midnight Oil album from the 1098-765-4321 album was fantastic.
Dave's musical knowledge literally ends in 1985.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
We walked out of the doors of that radio station, and he never followed music again.
unless you have an English accent and you're about 80, I have no idea who the hell you are, basically.
Right.
So obviously, we've known you for more than 35 years. You're also one of the only people I know who can positively confirm that Dave should have been fired from that radio station because he said a very bad word. Please tell everyone that story.
Well, I remember it because I was in high school in Urbana when you guys had the Saturday night show. That's tale of a misspent youth.
And tell everybody how big we were back then.
Champaign Urbana's premier funny, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Saturday nights,
appointment listening.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, you guys got into a fight on the air. Dave said something that he shouldn't have. And the thing that always impressed me about it was that Rick knew exactly the protocol and gave a perfect station ID right after.
Well, in case they want to send a letter, they need to know where to send that letter to the FCC.
Exactly.
And so everybody knows, it wasn't just a bad word.
It was the bad word.
It was the bad word.
And it was clear as day. And the when I then joined the radio station and became program director and found the archival tape, it was like discovering an Egyptian tomb or something.
Well, Raiders of the Lost Ark was actually based on this, I think.
A classic radio moment for sure.
That's right. Yeah, we never get into fights at all anymore. So that's
well, we're in a podcast now, so I could say fuck all the time I want.
That's true. That's true.
All right, enough of the frivolity here. Okay, you are distinguished. You're an award-winning author. For God's sake, let's talk about your critically acclaimed latest book, which is, like we said, the book of the year. It's titled Chicago Skyscrapers, 1934 to 1986. How technology, politics, finance, and race Reshaped the City. Obviously, everyone who lives in this great town, and I'm talking, of course, about Chicago, loves it. We love our skyline, right? So talk to us. This book sounds wonderful. Talk to us about it.
Yeah. So the book, really came about growing up downstate, right? Chicago is always the big city. We used to come here when I was a kid all the time, and I was kind of a nerdy kid. I liked, rocket ships, cars, whatever. And the skyscrapers in the city always were like my favorite part. I could just walk around the loop all day and be happy. And this book was really a way for me to kind of get into that and see if I could explain what it was about the buildings that made them so special. But also, I think that, a great way to understand a city is to look really carefully at its buildings, right, and see if you can tell the story of a city through them. So that's kind of what the book is trying to do, right, to say that here's why these buildings happened in this city at this time, and here's kind of what they tell us about why Chicago is the city it is, and how it developed like that. So it kind of gets into the nuts and bolts on the one hand, like there's enough sort of nerdy stuff about structures and glass, curtain walls, and all kinds of things. But it also kind of zooms out and says, these only happened here for certain reasons, and you can, I think, tell a lot of the story of Chicago in the last 50 or 70 years by looking at those buildings and trying to interpret them.
Well,
so it's geared.
That's what I like about the whole concept is, obviously you're a professor of architecture, but you're really looking at it far beyond that. You're the technology and the politics and the finance. And the thing that I thought was interesting, race. How does that play a role in Chicago architecture, and especially in the skyscrapers?
Yeah, I don't think you can talk about Chicago in the 20th century without talking about race and the difficult history this place has with it. To me, what was really interesting was, when you think about the city's high rises, you think about the downtown skyscrapers, right? You think about Sears Tower and you think about Hancock. But there were these other skyscrapers, right? The Chicago Housing Authority's projects that were really different. And, I remember coming into the city, you'd come up to Dan Ryan and you'd drive past 2 miles of the Robert Taylor homes.
Right.
Those are skyscrapers too. And, it turns out that a lot of those were designed by some of the same architects. And they came about, for because of a lot of the same forces, right? The population of the city and how it was distributed throughout Chicago, and the kind of pressures of people migrating from the South, fleeing the Jim Crow South, and really putting a lot of pressure on the city in ways that, as much as they tried to accommodate it, the way that people thought about race in the city at the time meant that they had to solve the problem in ways that just didn't work.
Right.
And to me, that's really the kind of two ends of the skyscraper story, right? We have these ones downtown that are, crisp and clean and beautiful and world famous. And then the housing projects that were, on the south and west sides in particular, you look at those and they're gone, right? Because they were so bad and they ended up being such a disaster. Why is it that one set of skyscrapers makes us feel really good about the city and the other we sort of, have tried really hard to forget about? I think it's important to tell both sides of that and to get a fuller understanding of the way Chicago developed.
My mom always referred to the Robert Taylor homes as Eastern European architecture. She was from Berlin,
right.
And she always said that it always reminded her of communism.
Yeah, I just came back from Berlin, and that'll be a fun. You should do a book about Berlin, because that is a. Have you ever been there?
Yeah. And it's you can tell a lot about Berlin by looking at the history of the buildings there too. And, you're right that in both cases, the kind of Eastern European housing and the CHA housing, you get the sense that, people were being warehoused, right? That they weren't really thinking about making nice places for people. They were just trying to put as many numbers into those buildings as they possibly could.
Well, let's talk about the nice places in Chicago. What are your I'm sure you're asked this all the time. What are your favorites? What are your favorite skyscrapers in Chicago, and why?
Oh, sure. So I divided up into two eras, right? The kind of old stuff and the newer stuff. The newer stuff, that's covered in this book, to me, I think still the best American skyscraper of the 20th century is Inland Steel, which is the corner of Dearborn and Monroe. And to me, it's this blue glass and stainless steel building. It's only about 19 stories tall, so it's not big, and you can kind of miss it if you don't know what you're looking for. But it just feels like a really well-tailored suit, right? Everything is just really crisp, really nicely detailed, and it was one of the first buildings that really jump-started Chicago in the 50s, right after 20 years or so where no skyscrapers got built downtown. Inland Steel was one that kind of jump-started things. So I really like that one. I think that is just about as good as it gets. It looks like it could have been built 5 or 10 years ago even. It's that kind of timeless. And if you go back further, the Rookery, which is at LaSalle and Adams, in the 1880s, beautiful.
That's not covered in this book. That's in your previous book.
That's in the earlier one, but that's one I always show people too.
Yeah, that's a beautiful building.
You can walk between the two and see, how much changed in that amount of time. So those are two that I always point out to people. And then there's more recent stuff like Aqua Tower in Lakeshore East, which architecture students come from all over the world to see this. It looks like a kind of rippling set of waves.
Yeah, that's a cool
big,
one.
800-foot tower. So there's lots of cool stuff, but those are a couple of my favorites.
You didn't mention Trump Tower.
I was just going to ask you. Yeah, that resembles a middle finger, and whenever I go by it, I'm like, okay, that's a middle finger.
Yeah, I always call it 401 North Wabash.
There you go.
Just to make it
if you
clear,
ever want to really entertain yourself, I know you're in Chicago for this summer. Just sit there for a couple of hours in front of Trump Tower and watch the people walk by, because like every other person will just flip off the building or scream like obscenities at it. It's really hilarious to watch.
Yeah. The thing about that building is like it's got a lot going for it.
I know, it's actually, I hate to say it, kind of a cool looking building.
I know, you take the sign off, and I think it'd be a lot more popular.
So when are you doing Champagne skyscrapers? You got the University Inn, right?
Well,
and what else? Illini Tower.
Illini Tower.
Well, and you got Green Street now has a couple of these.
Do they?
Yeah, I mean, it is so.
The co-ed theater.
There's no co-ed theater.
What?
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I mean, Green Street looks completely different than it was when we were there.
I know.
I mean, and not for the better. And I know I'm going to sound like an
old man,
but
because you are literally an old man,
basically.
Yeah.
So this Newberry Library thing. Talk to us about this. This is some hots. None of our books have ever been.
I know. We've published 100 books. They've never said, the Newberry Library has never called calling for us. They've never said, hey, how about that loop book? Let's put that in the Newberry Library. Nothing.
The Balding Handbook. I mean,
please.
So this was unbeknownst to you. I mean, you just kind of got an email or something, right? This was a total surprise, wasn't it?
It was a complete surprise and a really welcome one. The Pattis Family Foundation Award is something that the Newberry gives every year to the book that kind of helps explain Chicago as a city to readers. And it's gone to a couple really great books in the past that are more sort of memoir-like, thinking about what it's like to live in Chicago. And so for a kind of academic press book, that's geared toward the general public, but that covers a very, very narrow part of Chicago, it was really a happy surprise to get. And yeah, I had no idea it was coming. It was literally just an email and a phone call. To sort of think about the books that have been released this year that cover Chicago, I was surprised and really honored by it. We're going to do an event in September that the other there was a runner-up about
the losers. We call them losers in the biz.
No. The runner-up is a really good book about the kind of original Portage, right? Why there's a city here at all. And so there's an event in September where we're both going to do a kind of live discussion, and to me that's going to be really interesting, right? You go all the way back to the origins of the city.
Are you going to do it in Bughouse Square across the street there from the Newberry Library?
I think we're doing it inside.
Okay, no, that's too bad.
Yeah, there are plenty of other people doing live events all the time in Bughouse Square, but no, we'll be indoors.
All right, so now that the book is out, you've got the awards and everything. When you look back on the process of writing this book, are there any favorite discoveries that you came across? Because you don't know everything about Chicago skyscrapers when you start. He's distinguished. You knew a lot, but you must have found some things that were like, "Ooh, that's kind of cool. Got to put that in the book."
Oh, yeah. Endless stories. I mean, these, when you get buildings that are this complicated and this big going up, there's all kinds of crazy things that happen. Sometimes it had to do with how the buildings were conceived or designed. There was, for instance, a kind of sweetheart smoke-filled room deal where the city sold a block of Quincy Street to a developer so that Sears could build the tower they built on that block.
Oh, wow.
And the kind of bank that put it together somehow had been connected to a couple of aldermen who were in tight with Daley.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah,
that does not sound like Chicago to me.
Right.
No.
And the mob was involved somehow.
No, I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah. So there's stories like that where you just think, oh yeah, this is totally Chicago. And then there are stories about, like marble slabs falling off of Water Tower Place when it was under construction and crushing cars, where you just think, well, that's a great story. I got to find a way to get that in there as well. So, both ends, right? That sometimes you come across an anecdote where you just think, well, that just explains what it's like to be in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then other times, where you say like, well, yeah, that kind of is what it feels like to be an architect and have things go wrong sometimes.
I used to work in the Hancock, and there were signs, caution falling ice in the winter. And there were stories of people
getting crushed,
getting killed by ice just falling off the side of the skyscrapers. Not the sort of thing you think about when you're building something like that, but it happens.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write the book?
I had been sort of working on it off and on for a little while, a couple of years, but I got a sabbatical that was scheduled for 2020, and
everybody was on a sabbatical then.
Yeah, that's right. And so that, the first year or so of the pandemic, there's nothing else to do, and that's when I actually sat down and typed. And the pandemic was pretty well timed in that regard.
Yeah.
So it was probably a year and a half or so of really concentrated work. But in other ways, I've been working on this for 35 or 40 years, right? It's that's been on my mind for a long time.
Well, we should say you also wrote a book about skyscrapers. The first, 18. What are the years of that first book?
1871 to 1934. So Great Fire to the Great Depression.
So that's another. But how many other books? There's several others, right?
Yeah, there are a couple others. Those are the two that are more sort of aimed at the general public. I've written two. I'm generally interested in how engineers and architects work together, and I've done a couple that are more geared toward professionals, looking at a couple of examples of architects or engineers who built or designed in that sort of specific way. But the two Chicago books are the ones that certainly have been most popular.
I saw something, I don't know if it was on TikTok or something. I'm not distinguished. I'm on TikTok. That they're building buildings from the top down now. Did you? I think I actually even sent you something a while back.
How is that even possible?
I don't. Well, let's ask the distinguished professor. Is this a new thing, or have you heard of this, or what am I talking about here?
Well, it does sound pretty impossible, doesn't it? Are you sure this wasn't some AI thing that you were watching?
Yeah. All right. So basically, he's calling you a moron.
It was like in China or something, and I think that
maybe it's coming from the clouds. Maybe it's magic, Dave. Maybe they're using magic to build these.
I think I even sent you a video. Well, you fuck both of you. All right, fuck both of you.
I think what you've seen, there are lots of ways of building where you build the center core first, and then you use that to kind of raise the floors. You use the elevator core basically as the base of a crane, and that makes it look like the floors are dropping from the top down. But really they've built the middle of the building first, and then they're kind of pulling the rest of it.
Sorry, I mentioned it.
Screw this. All right, so you mentioned this thing in September. What is the date for that? Can people buy tickets for it? How does that work?
You can go to the Newberry Library's website, and I think I think you just reserve a spot, but it's September 28th. September.
That's great.
I think it's the 24th.
That's fantastic.
I think it's the 24th. Yeah, I think it's the 24th actually.
Yeah.
But there's more information on the Newberry's website.
And if people want to get your book, what's the best way to get your book?
It's available online. I recommend people use bookshop.org, but it's also available on Amazon if that's the way you get your books.
And you're also I don't know if you've heard of this baseball author. I believe his name was Hank Owens. Is that right? What was his name?
That's Hank Owens. Yeah, my good friend Hank wrote a good baseball book 12 or 13 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, I read it. It's quite good.
That's awesome. Good to hear.
Enough about the Cubs. Built from the top down, this new Detroit tower is making history in North America.
Okay.
Technology aims to help prevent hazards on the job. Detroit is making, so there is this tower being built in Detroit.
He literally has not been listening to this interview.
Right.
He has been researching something else.
Right on the border of Greektown and the Central Business District, a new Detroit landmark is being built from the top down. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So there you go.
Whatever.
All right. I'll have to find it. Sounds like that has to show up in a class.
Yes,
soon.
exactly.
All right. And so you're teaching, right? You're teaching classes. Give us a pitch of why students should go to the University of Illinois.
Oh, for architecture, we're definitely where it's happening. I mean, we are connected to Chicago in all kinds of ways. When I teach design studios, we always pick a project here in the city. So we've done projects, especially with the new developments that are going on the 78th, this new development down on the South Branch of the river. And as you guys know, Champaign-Urbana is a great place to go to school. Great college. Lots of good faculty, and it is more space, cheaper housing, all that than if you go to a big city. So we're connected to Chicago, but we've also got a little bit of distance from it.
Well, it's like a far south suburb.
Yeah, and if you turn on the radio, you might hear somebody say "fuck," which you're not going to get here in Chicago.
I listen to WPGU all the time, just kind of for nostalgia, and I have to say they sound really professional. I'd be curious to compare them to what we sounded like back.
Whenever my daughters, all three of them, are going to be going there. I don't ever. It's so hard. Or it's so infrequent that I even hear a live voice. It's all like voice tracked.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hear a lot of.
Yeah, not a lot of personality.
I mean, I could just.
It sounds professional. He says he's down there. He's listening.
Yeah. I mean, David, it may have been your little incident that they look back on.
Right, exactly.
Automate this a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, we can't take a chance with live voices anymore. Well, thank you very much, Tom, for being on the show. This has been fun.
Sure.
We're
fans, and actually, seriously, this is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah,
and
congratulations.
we're very proud of you.
And You know, I rarely say I'm happy for somebody and really mean it, but I'm actually, actually happy for you.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
feel the same way.
Right? You know, so, well, keep in touch, sir. And, I was going to ask you, Rick's giving me the sign to stop talking.
Yeah.
I was going to, we'll have you on again.
Is this going to be another question about
it's going to be another question that you, I want about the White Sox, the new White Sox ballpark on, where it could be built within the city. We'll have you on again. We'll have you on again.
I would love that.
Yeah, because it's never going to happen. Well, it's never going to happen. Yeah, if we ever build a new stadium in town, we're going to have you on, and we're going to talk about it, because
awesome.
I'm sure that you can tell us things that we don't know.
Yeah. And they're actually going to build it from the outfield in.
From the outfield in, yeah.
Just shut up.
They're going to do it from the top of the...
Thank you, Tom.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, guys. This was a blast.
All right,
we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
There he goes. Tom Leslie.
Yeah, I did not appreciate you guys just jamming on me for this, because I knew screw it.
Yeah. He's a good guy,
I'm
though.
done.
He's a good guy. And, you got to question him a little bit, because he really was a listener of Rick and Dave back in the day. Right. So you got to question him.
He was not a distinguished high school student then.
You got to worry a little bit about him. But thanks, Tom, for coming on. We have people to thank. Yeah. In addition to Tom, we need to thank our executive producer, Tony Lasano, with Opie Shows. Thank you, Tony, for all your hard work. Yeah. We need to thank Ed Silla, the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Great Talk Radio is not dead. It's just moved to a better place, radiomisfits.com. And we'll be back again soon with another episode of
The Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
The proceeding was a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Find our other great shows on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at radiomisfits.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?